Since its creation in 1969, Scooby-Doo has always been popular in one form or another, largely due to its vast catalog of shows and movies having pretty consistent quality. Shout out to Be Cool Scooby-Doo, gone too soon, and Velma doesn't count. But while there's something to love in every version, the original series, Scooby-Doo Where Are You, is to me the only one that actually manages to be scary. For a show about monsters and solving mysteries, the scares are mostly overshadowed by the jokes and character dynamics, which isn't a bad thing. It's a kid's show after all, and if anything, it's a testament to the writing. We're living in a world where there are entire video essays arguing that Fred is the best character in the gang, the guy whose original purpose was to drive the van and suggest they split up for some reason. But Where Are You has these elements too. It's definitely a comedy, so what exactly makes it so different from the rest of the Scooby-verse? Well, simply put, more than any other show, it leans into the Gothic elements at the core of its story, and in doing so, creates an atmosphere that is as spooky as it is uncanny. Happy Halloween, everyone. Let's dive in. So, Gothic fiction is a genre centering around horror and specifically the feeling of dread. Think Dracula and Frankenstein's monster, who, hey, just so happened to appear in Where Are You's first season. While later series usually create their own villains, Where Are You mostly stuck to classic monsters like witches, ghosts, and zombies, and I would argue that this creates a more frightening experience. I think it's fair to say that newer Scooby shows often sacrifice the creepiness for comedy, like with What's New Scooby-Doo's villain, the Baseball Spectre, which just isn't as imposing as Dracula, and it's not just because it's a pretty goofy concept. Everyone knows about vampires. They've been in hundreds of horror stories, so before the Scooby Gang even meets the Count, we know they're in deep trouble. There's almost this sense that they're going up against a real monster who's been wreaking havoc for centuries. Same thing with zombies and witches. Their long history in Gothic fiction makes them more imposing than an entirely new concept like the roller ghoster. I think What's New really just came up with a pun and worked backwards. But I want to take a step back from the villains, because in my eyes, what makes Where Are You so scary and so gothic doesn't have much to do with the actual frights themselves. I mean, we know it's a guy in a costume, and it's hard to feel like the gang is ever in any real danger. Sure, the monsters chase them, but I'm honestly never really quite sure what they'll do if they catch them. No, the true secret to Where Are You's atmosphere is in how it crafts its settings, which is also its most gothic element. Rather than the bright and colorful backgrounds that fill the subsequent Scooby series, say that 5 times fast, Where Are You has a super dark color palette consisting almost exclusively of dark blue and black. While this sets it apart from just about every other animated kids show besides like Batman the Animated Series, it also makes it incredibly gothic. See, one of the main characteristics of Gothic fiction is using the unknown to create a sense of uneasiness in the audience. We can't see what's going on in any of the dark and creepy corners of the screen, so our minds fill in the blanks, imagining all sorts of horrors and danger. And Where Are You is the king of this. I mean, just look at some of these backgrounds. Every inch is coated in shadows, and this, together with the rundown nature of the settings, immediately sets the audience on edge. Decay is also a major theme of Gothic, alluding to both a long unseen history of scary deeds while also subtly reminding the audience of death and the inevitability of time. The settings are also just incredibly elaborate, making the cartoony character designs really stick out against them, subtly letting us know that something just isn't quite right. This feeling is known as the uncanny, and it's a major part of Gothic fiction. You might know it from the Uncanny Valley, where the closer CGI gets to realistic human features, the farther they get, because it's much weirder to see something that's just a little off. Scooby-Doo's settings are uncanny in their own way, because there's nothing really unsettling about walking around a theme park. But being there at night, when everything's empty and dark, just feels off, and it creates a sense of uneasiness. And this effect is unintentionally enhanced by the poor animation technology of the time that limited the series' creators. The characters' dialogue is stilted and off-putting, nobody moves quite right, and some of the character models are very strange at times. Looking back on it, it makes the show feel even more unsettling, because nobody's really acting normally. Each episode kind of feels more like an odd dream than a real situation. Each episode, Where Are You accomplishes all of this before they even introduce the villain, crafting an atmosphere where you believe that anything could happen. Whether that's a ghost chasing you or just the eyes of a painting moving. That was always my favorite. It's so creepy. Because, again, who's behind there? We don't even know if they're a threat or not, but not knowing is scary, and it causes us to imagine the worst case scenario. Where Are You isn't my favorite Scooby series, but it's undeniably the scariest. For me, the only thing that really comes close is Mystery Incorporated's Larger Mystery, precisely because it plays with that sense of the uncanny that Where Are You mastered. I mean, the idea that this has all happened before beneath the caves of Crystal Cove is so intriguing, it just makes your skin crawl. Scooby shows since have taken a very deliberate approach to focus on the comedy rather than the frights. Backgrounds are brighter, villains are goofier, and the series is just overall more focused on giving the characters time to interact. It's actually pretty easy to trace the shift over time by looking at the designs of each series. Where Are You is the darkest, and then What's New Scooby-Doo is considerably brighter, but still has some ominous and dark backgrounds every once in a while. Then Be Cool Scooby-Doo is almost too bright and cheerful. Granted, these examples are incredibly cherry-picked, but it's indicative of a much larger trend. And that's totally fine. It's not like Scooby-Doo was ever completely about the mysteries and the jump scares. Where Are You is funny. Sometimes unintentionally, but it still counts.
Oh no! We lost Shaggy!
And I think a big part of the reason why the series has endured so long is precisely because of its characters. But as time marches on and animation quality gets better and better, and Where Are You looks even worse as a result, I think it's important to acknowledge what this show got right. It introduced an entire generation of kids to the Gothic genre, which is pretty cool because I need more scary shows to watch during Halloween.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo!